I'm Lynn.
And I'm Leo. Welcome back to Yoga with Lynn and Leo. Or welcome if this is your first day with us on the day one of our foundation course.
Yes, and we're going to go through 5 poses today which are going to help build a really good foundation for your yoga practice. So we're going to start with the very base at the feet. So we're going to start in a Tadsasana action. Now what's really important about the base of the pose is how you work the sole of the foot. So the sole of the foot needs to be broad and open, and how you get this broadness is by giving yourself a little bit of an adjustment. So Leo's going to be coming down and spreading her toes. So you can see this action, how Leo is spreading her toes, and it is worth you taking time to spread your toes and get that breadth and broadness in your feet. Now the weight on the feet, you need to see that you go right back into the heels so that you create space in the front of the ankle. Now you have to imagine that there is a coin in the center of your heel bone, and the whole circumference of that coin needs to be grounding down. The whole of the leg needs to ground down. So this is, as we've heard before in yoga, the analogy of the tree. So the tree has got to be really strong and bold. The bones ground down as if they are filling with water, and the soft tissue fibre lifts up through the leg all the way up. Now the weight going back, the front thigh to the bone, you have to find that tiny little bite right in the base of the abdomen. And then from there, lift up through the center of the body. And this is where we come to in Tadsasana. So if you're at the very beginning of your journey, or you have some yoga underneath your belt, then see that you take time with this. In Tadsasana, we're going to be working a little bit more with the ankles now. So we're becoming aware of the back of the ankle and the lift of the heel. So let us demonstrate. You're going to need to have either a yoga foam pad or a book. And then you're going to place the ball of the foot onto the pad. Now, some of you, as you can see here, Leo's finding it very difficult to take her heels down to the floor. So you just have to gradually take the heels down. Now, if this is too much for you, get a slightly lower support. And then taking your hands to the wall and just feel that extension through the calves. So the legs are so important when we start coming to all the other standing poses. So see that you're working from that connection of the heel all the way through to the calves. And you've got to see that these thighs go back as well quite strongly, so you get that action. So practice this with a little bit of height, and then we're going to change the foot position so that the heels go on top of the support. So you can come away from the wall now and see if you can stand without the wall support in this position. So Leo's just going to face you now and taking the arms down. So notice that the feet are just slightly apart, hip width apart, and from that lift of the heel, see that it encourages the whole of the leg to lift, and then lift further. It's almost as if you have these invisible legs in the sideways, lifting all the way up and rolling your shoulders back and down. And again, be there. Breathe. Soften your facial features. So the softness comes into your practice, but there's a lot of work that goes on in the whole of the body. All of this extension, vertical extension, and the breath bringing the broadness into the body. So all of these subtleties bring you to asana. And asana in translation is seated. So eventually we learn with all these different poses to sit for long periods of time so that we can be in that quiet state. Okay, so we're going to come for Uttanasana. Now we're going to use a chair for this. Now if you've got quite long hamstrings, then still use the chair because we're using the chair for a reason. So this is about approach to practice, and what you're going to do is to extend forward into the halfway position and put the wrists onto the top of the chair. So you can use any chair for this. It doesn't have to be necessarily a yoga chair. You can see that this is a yoga chair because it doesn't have a back, and we tend to do our back bends through the chairs. Alright, so you have to lift up in the Tadsasana action, how we've been instructing so far, and hinge at the hips, hinge at the hips. Now only this far, and then extend onto the chair. Now I know some of you want to go a lot further than this. This is blocking you maybe, but it's blocking you for good reason, because you need to see that you're lifting up through the legs and you're still maintaining the footwork. You're maintaining that lift through the center of the legs, and also getting the length now from that action of the pelvis moving towards the leg side. It's really got to lift here. Now when you're in this position, it's almost as if the whole of the front body starts to come into a position where perhaps you might be standing up in your Tadsasana. So you've got to see that you lift the pelvic rims, the very front pelvic rims, so that you get this space in the abdomen. And then see if you can maintain this and take your hands onto the seat of the chair. So don't be in a rush with this. Maintain that beautiful extension through the spine, through the front body, and now take your hands to the chair legs. Can you manage? Now this is not a competition or test, you just come at your own pace. If you find that taking the wrists onto the top of the chair is really challenging, then you stay at that for a little while. And we do recommend that you go over and over until you come for the next video next time. So keep this action, keep this extension, keep the lift through the front of the legs. Keep the lift in the abdomen. So we're going to come out of this pose, but first of all you have to see that you lift as if you're going to stand up without letting go of the chair. So stand with the hands onto the chair and go through the motions of lifting up. So we'll see if your hands are glued to the chair, but you've got to lift that abdominal action, soft abdomen to the spine, and then release the hands and come up into a standing position. Stand in Tadsasana. So we're coming for dog pose, Adho, Mukha, Svanasana, but we're using a chair. Now I know some of you can do this from the floor, but we're using the chair to get the height in the body. So we're continuing with that lift through the center of the body and that lift through the center of the legs. So taking the hands to the chair eventually, you can see that we've got this chair by the wall, and it's by the wall so that it doesn't slip. So it's good to actually have some support for the chair before you practice this pose. So taking your hands onto the chair and then walk your feet back. Walk your feet back. So this is wonderful because you get a fulcrum. So those of you who do have tight hamstrings, then it gives you an opportunity to get the length and space in the front and back body. You have to use the chair as a fulcrum. You have to push into the chair so much to get this extension coming back this way. And remember that we need to use the legs as levers and the front thighs move away from the abdomen as much as possible. So you find that there is stiffness in the body and the legs. That's exactly why you need to be practicing your yoga. Extend back into the legs, and then see there's a softness in the abdomen. The abdomen moves and it's directed towards the spine side. So this may be a little bit difficult if there's tightness across the frontal hip bones. Then it's a gradual process. So see that you practice in this way several times, and then coming up out of the pose, walking towards the chair, and then coming back into your Tadsasana. Feet together and just be there. Roll your shoulders back and down and just be aware of your inhalation and your exhalation. So we're just feeling the foundations of the practice. We're coming to floor level now. As you can see, Leo is in a prone position, preparing for Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So a lot of people really find this very challenging. As you can see here, Leo is stretching those legs away. Now this is important that you take time and you keep lengthening those legs away from the roots of the thighs so that you create the length and space in the lower back. Then tuck in those toes under and just be there for a moment. Now if you find this pose really challenging to lift up, I'm going to show you a few methods that are going to help you. But firstly, we're coming to the classic action, but with the toes tucked under. This will help to keep those legs absolutely strong and straight. And moving those heels away from the pelvis. Be sure that the legs are now off of the floor and the back of the knees are open. Having the hands so that they are beside the chest, and just look forward so the collarbones start to lift up. Now this is quite a big action. So you're going to press down with your palms and then lift the whole of the body up. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So go and see that you press into those wrists, lift and broaden across the collarbones, and then releasing down. So those of you who can manage this, then you can do several times. For those of you who find this challenging, then we're going to go straight into the action where we bend the legs. And we'll come to the brick action in a moment. So if you find this really difficult, then coming into the action from this kneeling position is a really good way to start to prepare the pose. So tuck those toes under. As you can see here, Leo's tucking the toes under. Lift the abdomen to spine, look forward and launch yourself forward. Launch, yeah. So you haven't got to then use the action of the hands to lift up. So this we find at the centre becomes a really good method when people find it difficult to lift up from the floor and then releasing down. To get a little bit more height in the pose, so for those of you who find it difficult to come up, you may find this method easier, or you may find that it gives you a little bit more lift. So it works in two ways. Taking your hands onto the supports again, reaching those legs, tucking those toes under, pressing into those palms and see, can you push into those bricks and lift up. So this gives you a little bit more lift through the centre of the body. And sometimes again, it can be quite challenging to come up. So therefore, you would stick to the bent leg position, keeping the chest nice and open. But whichever way you practice a few times and then releasing. We're going to come into all three poses now. Uttanasana, Adho Mukha Svanasana, so that's a forward bending fold, dog pose. We're going to come back into Adho Mukha, Virasana, and then Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So standing up on your mat. When you stand, preparing for this, these three poses, you have to make sure that you stand to the end of the mat, so you have plenty of mat behind you so you can travel. Now we're going to hinge at the hips, but before we do that, lift the arms up into Urdhva to make sure you've got that really nice length going through the side waist. Now keep that length, keep the frontal ribs away from the pelvis as you release your hands down. Now put your three fingers onto these frontal pelvic rims to remind you to lift up and above the rims. Hinge forward. So as you hinge forward, you're going to see that you take your hands down either to the bricks as we've got them here, or to the floor. Now the bricks are really important because you can still maintain that lift of the abdomen. You're going to need that eventually when you start jumping into poses and also when you come into your varied practice. So we're going to take the hands to the floor now, so moving the bricks on. Now when we come back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, you have two options. You can either jump, which Leo is going to show you now, jumping, or you can walk. So Leo will show you the stepping back action. So when you step back, you reach one leg back and then the other leg. So maybe it's something that you need to build up to eventually once you practice a little bit more. But being in Adho Mukha Svanasana, in this position, and remembering those actions when we were against the wall with the chair, how much you lifted through the abdomen. So the props are really there to show you and to guide you with slightly better refinement of the pose. So keeping those legs absolutely strong and straight. We're going to come out of this position now into Adho Mukha Virasana. We're coming back into your Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. So whichever method you found you were able to practice, then come into your practice. We're coming into this pose. As you can see, Leo came from a kneeling position, but you can come from a prone position as we demonstrated earlier. Come back into Adho Mukha Svanasana. So you're getting the hang of these three poses now. Bending the knees and reaching back into Adho Mukha Virasana. Just take a few breaths, extending the arms and the front body. And now we're coming for sukhasana. Sitting nice and tall, lifting your spine, lifting your chest.
So if you have stiff hips, it's a good idea to sit on a little bit of height. I've got a couple of foam pads here for my sukhasana, simple cross legs. And thank you for joining us today. If you want to practice this more frequently than just today, then please feel free to do so. It will help you when you come to do the next videos in this series, if you've got a little bit of mobility and agility from practicing this sequence a number of times. So you can do it every day this week if you choose to do so. We'll be bringing up the next video at 0100 GMT next Sunday morning. So hopefully we'll see you back again with that video. Thank you for joining us today. Namaste.